the day I saw him speak to the darkness. As told by Nathanael, a fisherman from Capernaum. I want to be careful with this, because I know how it sounds. When a man says I saw what I saw, especially when what he saw is what I'm about to describe, people look at him a certain way. They nod slowly. They exchange glances. They decide, quietly, that he is either lying or lost. I am not lying. And I was not lost then. Though I'll tell you honestly, after that morning, something in me shifted. Permanently. Like furniture that's been moved in a room you've lived in your whole life. Everything's still there. Just not quite where it was. The man. I had seen Jesus before that morning. Several times. Enough to know he was not ordinary, though I couldn't have explained why, exactly. It wasn't his appearance. He was unremarkable to look at. Medium height. Calloused hands. The kind of face that could belong to anyone. But the way a room changed when he entered it? That was harder to explain. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a shift. Like when clouds move and the light changes and you look up without knowing why. That kind of shift. I had felt it before. I was not prepared for what came next. The synagogue. Sabbath morning. Capernaum. The light came through the high windows at a low angle. People found their places. Children whispered until someone hushed them. The smell of old wood and lamp oil and many bodies in one room. Ordinary in every way. Jesus stood at the front and taught. I won't try to reproduce the words. Every time I've heard someone try, it comes out wrong, too polished, too arranged. What I remember is not the content but the sensation of it. Like a window opening in a room that has been sealed for years. People were leaning forward. I remember that clearly. Every person in that room leaning slightly, unconsciously, toward him. Every person except one. The man in the corner. He was in the far left corner, near the back wall. I knew him. Everyone in Capernaum knew him. He had been like this for years. No one could remember exactly when it started. He would be fine for weeks. Quiet. Normal. And then something would shift and he would become something else. His voice would change. His eyes would change. He would say things that made no sense in a voice that didn't sound like his. People kept their distance. Not cruelly. Just distance. He was sitting very still when I noticed him. Too still. While everyone else leaned forward, he sat rigid against the wall, spine straight, hands flat on his knees. And his eyes fixed on Jesus. Fixed with an expression I had never seen on a human face before. Not hatred. Not fear. Recognition. The recognition of something that has encountered its opposite. I felt it before I understood it. The hair on my arms stood up. The sound. It started low. A sound from his chest, like something being forced upward through resistance. Like a door being pushed open from the wrong side. The people nearest to him stepped back. Not running. Just the body's instinct, moving before the mind catches up. Then his face changed. The muscles of it rearranging. Not dramatically. Not like something from a story. Small, terrible shifts. Like the man behind the face had stepped back and something else had stepped forward to look out through his eyes. And then the voice came out. I knew this man's voice. On his good days soft, a little hoarse, unremarkable. This was not his voice. This was something using his voice the way a large hand uses a glove that is too small. Functional. But wrong in a way you feel in your chest before you can name it. It said, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth?" Us. Not me. Us. The room went silent. Not the leaning forward silence from before. A different silence entirely. The silence of 50 people holding their breath simultaneously without deciding to. The voice continued, and as it spoke it grew. Not louder exactly. Fuller. Like it was taking up more space in the room than a voice should occupy. Like it was pressing against the walls. Have you come to destroy us? A pause. And in that pause I heard something I cannot explain. Under the voice. Beneath it. A sound that wasn't quite a sound, more a vibration. More a feeling in the back of the throat and behind the eyes. I know who you are. Another pause. Longer. The Holy One of God. The words fell into the room like stones into still water. And the silence after them was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Jesus. He had not moved. Through all of it, the sound, the voice, the words, he had not stepped back. Had not flinched. Had not made any of the gestures I had seen others make when they encountered this man on his bad days, the nervous backward steps, the averted eyes, the quick murmuring of prayers under breath. He stood exactly where he had been standing. And he looked at the man in the corner. I was close enough to see his face. That's the thing I come back to most. His face. Not frightened. Not angry. Not performing anything for the crowd around him. He looked focused. Completely, entirely focused. The way a man looks when he has set down everything else and given his full attention to one single thing. His jaw was set. His eyes were steady. There were lines around his mouth that I hadn't noticed before, not from age, from something else. Something like grief. Or like looking at something broken and knowing exactly what it cost to break it. He took one step forward. Just one. And I felt the air in the room change. That pressure I described, the pushing, the heaviness the voice had brought with it, it shifted. Like the current in a river meeting something immovable. He looked directly at the man. And he said quietly, so quietly I had to strain to hear it from where I stood. Be quiet. A breath. Come out of him. The exorcism. What happened next lasted perhaps 30 seconds. It felt like much longer. The man's body went rigid, first every muscle at once, like a man seized by something, arms straight at his sides, head thrown back. The cup he had been holding dropped. Someone nearby gasped. Then the convulsions began. Violent. Total. His whole body involved not the random trembling of illness but something that moved through him in waves, like something fighting its way out against resistance, against a body that had housed it for years and was not releasing it easily. He went down. People scattered backward. A bench overturned. A woman pulled her child behind her and pressed against the far wall. The man next to me, a large man, a man I had seen haul full fishing nets without strain grabbed my arm and held it and did not seem to notice he was doing it. I didn't shake him off, because the sound had started. That wrong voice was coming out of him in a way that had no parallel in anything I had experienced. It was not screaming. It was not weeping. It was something without a name. High and then low. Fragmented. Like something being pulled apart and refusing to let go. The words it made were not words I could repeat. But underneath them, underneath whatever that was, I could hear the man himself. His real voice. Faint. Somewhere under all of it. Like someone trapped in a room, hearing the noise outside, waiting. The man on the floor arched. His hands clawed at the stone. And then, a sound I will carry with me until I die. One single sound. Not from the man on the floor. From somewhere else. From the room itself, or from the air, or from something that had been in the room that was no longer in the room. A sound of departure. Of something leaving. Of something that had been present solidly, heavily, undeniably present becoming absent. And then silence. Complete silence. After. The man on the floor did not move for a moment. Then he moved. Slowly. Cautiously. The way you move when you are not sure yet that your body belongs to you. He pushed himself up. He looked at his hands. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the people around him, at their faces, at their fear, at the overturned bench, at the child pressed against the wall, and his expression was one I have never seen before or since on a human face. The expression of someone waking from a dream they did not know they were having. Bewildered. Present. Terrified in a completely different way than before. His eyes found Jesus. And Jesus was looking back at him. Still with that focused stillness. Still with those lines around his mouth that looked like grief. Something passed between them. I don't know what. I couldn't hear it. Couldn't see it exactly. But I felt it the way you feel a conversation happening in the next room through a wall. Then the man on the floor began to weep. Silently. Without drama. Just tears moving down his face and his shoulders shaking and his hands still held out in front of him like he was checking that they were still his. I think they were, finally. For the first time in a very long time. What remained? Later, after the crowd had broken apart, after the voices had started up and the questions had begun and the room had filled with the noise of people trying to process what they had just witnessed, I stood near the back wall, where he had been sitting. I looked at the stones. His handprints were there. In the dust on the floor, where he had clawed at it. I stood there for a long time. I don't know why. I think I needed to see something real. Something I could touch. Something that confirmed that what I had just seen had happened in a physical place, on physical ground, to a physical man. Not a story. Not a vision. Here. In this room. On these stones. What I know. I am an old man now. I have told this story many times. I will not try to explain it. I will only tell you this: something was in that room. Something that had lived inside that man, that had used his voice and his eyes and his ears, recognized Jesus the moment he walked in. Before any of us did. We saw a teacher. We heard interesting words. We leaned forward because something about him made us want to pay attention. But whatever was in that man in the corner, it didn't lean forward. It pressed back against the wall. Because it knew something we didn't yet know. It knew what had just walked into the room. And it was afraid. I still dream about that voice sometimes. The wrong voice. Using a man's throat to say something it couldn't help saying. I know who you are. Darkness named him before the rest of us understood what we were looking at. That has never left me. It never will. My name is Nathaniel. I was there. I saw a man return to himself. And I saw what fled when it was told to flee. Whatever it was. It knew his name. We were still learning it.